I'm afraid we're in for a bit of a walk.
What does that mean? We're in for a bit of a walk. Hey, what the f does that mean, huh? What?
I once read an interesting book. It said that most people lost in the wilds, they die of shame.
What?
Yeah. See, they die of shame. What did I do wrong? How could I have gotten myself into this? And so they sit there and they die. Because they didn't do the one thing which would have saved their lives.
And what is that, Charles?
Thinking.
Hello, Canada, and the world at large. This is Lane from Canada. You know, if billionaire Amazon creator Jeff Bezos and that creepy photographer named Glenn from My Cousin's Wedding ever found themselves unexpectedly thrown into the ring with an ill-tempered Kodiak bear in the Alaska wilderness, no offense, Jeff and guy who kept asking the entire bridal party why they were still wearing shoes, I know where I'd be putting my money. However, there's always a lesson to be learned about underestimating the survival of the human spirit, no matter how unprepared that spirit might appear to be. Welcome to Before Movies Sucked, and this is The Edge. In a distant time before Leonardo DiCaprio was getting mauled by a CGI bear, Alec Baldwin and Harold Perrineau's stuntmen were getting mauled by a real one. I promise that's the only shot I'm going to take at The Revenant, as it was actually a pretty great movie. Even though Hugh Glass's biracial Pawnee son, who was murdered by an evil white guy, was pure fiction and a blatant attempt by an overly pretentious director to insert modern political messaging into a survival story that didn't need it, which completely ruined the movie for me, and now I totally hate it, and I don't even care how much time Leonardo DiCaprio spent sleeping inside the carcass of a dead horse! Anywho, at a remote Alaskan airstrip, billionaire Charles Morse disembarks from his private plane along with his younger wife Mickey, a professional model, and a photography team led by Bob Green and his assistant Steven. They are taken by a seaplane to a rustic hunting lodge owned by a mountain man named Styles, where they plan to do a magazine photo shoot for Mickey. During the flight, Charles opens a birthday gift from his assistant, a book on surviving in the wilds, but he seems a bit depressed that no one else has remembered his birthday. At the lodge, Styles gives the city slickers a warm welcome, but warns them to practice constant bear awareness, even indoors. It is revealed that Charles has near-perfect memory recall, which is implied to have played a large role in his business success.
I tell you what, I will give you $5. You can tell me what's on the other side of this blade.
It's a rabbit smoking a pipe.
A rabbit smoking a pipe. Why in the world would that be, Charles?
Well, it's a symbol of the Cree Indians. On one side there's the panther, on the other his prey, the rabbit. He sits unafraid. He smokes his pipe. It's a traditional motif.
Why is he unafraid?
Because he's smarter than the panther.
Later that night, after telling Charles that they have all gone to bed, the group surprises him with an impromptu birthday party, although they badly frighten him when Bob pranks him in a bearskin rug. Mickey gives Charles an inscribed pocket watch, and Bob gives him a pocket knife engraved with his initials. During the photo shoot the next day, Bob becomes increasingly frustrated by the inauthenticity of Mickey in an Indian costume. He abruptly decides to leave the lodge and find one of Styles' friends, a local Indian man named Jack Hawk, whose photograph Bob had earlier praised as epitomizing a true lack of self-consciousness. Believing that Jack will deliver the perfect photograph Bob has been searching for all his life, he invites Charles to accompany him and Steven. Charles suspects that Styles is planning to pressure him into investing a large sum of money into a renovation project for the lodge, so he agrees to join the party. The pilot flies Charles, Bob, and Steven to the mountain cabin, but they find a note on the door stating that Jack has gone bear hunting at a lake several miles away. They fly to the lake, and Bob tells Charles that he admires him for how graciously he took their prank on him the night before. Bob comments that it must be difficult being so wealthy and never knowing which people truly value you for who you are.
Never feel sorry for a man who owns a plane. So, what do you value me for, Bob?
I tell you what, I like your style. And I think your wife's pretty cute, too.
Yes. So, how are you planning to kill me? Oh, hold on! Oh,
Oh yeah, and then that happens. In the crash, the pilot is killed and Stephen nearly drowns, but a quick-thinking Charles manages to rescue him and grab a pouch of emergency flares before swimming to shore. Charles and Bob resuscitate Stephen and make a fire using one of the flares, which keeps them warm until morning. However, they realize that Bob pocketed the note from the door of Jack's cabin, so anyone who's looking for them will not know where they went. Charles makes a makeshift compass to give them a rough idea of where the cabin is, and they determine to hike back to a high vantage point where they can build a large signal fire. Bob confronts Charles about what he said on the plane, and Charles confesses that he believes Bob is envious of his wealth and also wants Mickey for himself, having seen him make flirtatious comments to her. Bob denies this and mocks Charles for being paranoid. After an arduous hike through the mountains, the men are confronted by a vicious Kodiak bear they are barely able to escape from by crossing a ravine on a narrow log. Charles loses the signal flares when he slips from the log and is almost swept over a waterfall, but Bob saves his life. Charles thanks Bob, feeling guilty for his earlier accusations.
he saved me.
Get over it, Charles. I just need you to navigate.
He saved my life.
Well, I couldn't kill you with Stephen around. I'd have to kill him, too, and he's the only one that knows how I like my coffee.
Come on, he saved my life.
Buy me something nice when we get home.
How'd you like your coffee?
I like my coffee like I like my women.
Bitter and murky.
After many hours, the men are horrified to discover their original campfire, realizing that Charles' compass was faulty and they have walked in a circle. Stephen despairs that they will die in the woods, and Charles assigns him a menial task to calm him down.
See this? Gonna make a spear, all right?
You want me to make a spear?
Yes, Stephen, you should absolutely make a spear. Survival in the Woods 101 is make a spear. Did you ever see The Gray? It's an entire movie about a group of survivors from a plane crash in the Alaska wilderness getting eaten by a pack of wolves, including Liam Neeson, and all because not one of them ever thinks to make a spear! Sorry, Mom, but it had to be said. The incompetence of that movie is infuriating. Just make a spear! While carving a spearhead, Stephen accidentally cuts his leg with Charles' pocket knife. Charles dresses the wound and orders Bob to bury the bloody pant leg. They build a fire and construct a shelter to allow Stephen to rest, although they are disheartened by a torrential rainstorm. Charles maintains that they still have a good chance of survival, as Stephen's injury is not crippling and they can help him hike to safety. However, Charles realizes that Bob only tossed the bloody rags away into a tree rather than burying them, putting the scent of blood in the air. Moments later, a terrified Stephen sees that the Kodiak has tracked them to the camp, and it immediately attacks him. Charles and Bob try to fend off the bear with flaming branches, but they are helpless to save Stephen, who is horrifically mauled and killed. Charles and Bob are forced to flee blindly into the drenching storm, and almost freeze to death as the rain turns to snow overnight. Charles and Bob are weakened after 2 days without food, and succeed in trapping a squirrel. However, in doing so, they fail to get the attention of a rescue helicopter before it flies out of sight. Bob breaks down in tears and emotionally rants about his disgust for Charles' wealth and calm demeanor in a time of crisis.
Sit up there, drink some golf, screwing the maid, but get you in an emergency.
That's right.
And you bloom. You make me sick, you know that? You make me sick!
I'm sure I do.
I mean, what puts you off? Jews and taxes.
Fire from ice, can you think how?
I don't want to know how, Charles!
You have anything you'd like to live for? Hmm?
You know something? You know something? Maybe we were right to let people like you run this country all these years. You're the only ones dense enough!
No, I'm not dense. I just have no imagination.
While Bob sets up a new camp, Charles attempts to fish in a nearby stream, but finds himself facing the Kodiak once again. Realizing that the bear is a man-killer who has been stalking them for sport, Charles flees to the camp where he and Bob are able to keep the bear at bay throughout the night by surrounding themselves with fires.
What are we gonna do, Charles?
Well, do I have a plan? Am I supposed to have a plan? You tell me. We can't move. You won't let us eat. We're gonna starve up here.
What are we gonna do, Charles?
We're gonna kill him.
The men gather sticks and fashion spears and other traps from their surroundings. Bob believes that they don't stand a chance against the bear, but Charles motivates him with stories of 11-year-old boys in Africa who kill lions with spears, and Indian boys who would count coup on bears to prove their manhood.
Oh, I'm gonna kill the bear. Say it, I'm gonna kill the bear. Say it. I'm gonna kill the bear. Say it. Say I'm gonna kill the bear. Say it!
I'm gonna kill the bear.
Say it again!
I'm gonna kill the bear.
And again!
I'm gonna kill the bear!
Good. What one man can do, another can do.
What one man can do, another can do.
Say it again!
What one man can do, another can do.
And again!
What one man can do, another can do.
Using a bloody rag, the men lure the bear into a trap, injuring it with a bundle of spears and a large rock which they drop from the trees like a giant swinging caltrop. The wounded bear pursues them into a river where they engage it at close range with spears. Both men are wounded, and Bob is almost mauled to death before Charles saves him and draws the bear away. As the charging bear rears up, Charles braces his spear into a crevice, impaling the predator as it falls on him. The famished men cook and eat the bear and make warm clothing from its hide.
All my life, I wanted to do something that was unequivocal.
Well, Charlie, I certainly think this qualifies.
Yeah, something.
See, Charles, that's what they call it personal growth. A month ago, old Smokey here would have reared up. You probably would have called your lawyer.
I wouldn't do that to an animal.
Armed with spears, the men continue deeper into the mountains and eventually find a trapper's cabin which has medical supplies, alcohol, a canoe, and a Winchester rifle. Charles tries to light a fire in the stove. He uses the receipt from the pocket knife Bob gave him as kindling, but realizes that the receipt also includes the inscribed pocket watch that was given to him by Mickey, and a man's wristwatch which had been engraved "To Bob from Mickey for all the nights," confirming Mickey's infidelity with Bob. Charles quietly burns the receipt and asks Bob if he can see his watch, which Bob had previously claimed was broken when Charles tried to borrow it for orienteering. Bob loads the rifle and confesses that Charles was right and he has been plotting to kill him.
What's the matter, Bob? Can't do it sober? I suppose you don't need me anymore. You can find your own way out of here without me.
Well, you had no business with that broad anyway. You know you don't. You know that you don't, Charles. I mean, hey, look at it. Why did she go with you? Why in the hell did she go with you? Your money, for the love of God, everyone in the world knew that. Are you nuts? You went through the airport with her. Everyone that saw you said, there goes a guy with a plane. was a guy with a plane.
Bob forces Charles outside at gunpoint, telling him that the world is a vicious place and Charles is better off out of it. Charles only wants to know if Mickey was complicit in the plan to kill him, but Bob refuses to answer. However, Bob begins to lose his nerve when Charles refuses to turn his back, instead choosing to look Bob in the eye.
Charles, don't!
Be careful of the deadfall.
We're always riding a high when we fall the hardest. Charles retrieves the rifle but refuses to kill Bob, instead rescuing him and dressing his leg. The severe bleeding implies that Bob's femoral artery has been lacerated, and Charles knows they must quickly find help before Bob dies of exsanguination. Late in the night, Charles puts Bob into the canoe and they begin rowing down the river and into a lake. Bob asks why Charles would save him, and speculates that Charles has never had a real friend in his life. Realizing that Bob is fading, Charles takes them to shore and starts a fire to warm him. Charles confesses that he is unsure of what he will do next, and doesn't even know if he will return from Alaska, having nothing to go back to. With his strength almost gone, Bob tearfully repents of his murderous plan, and swears to Charles that Mickey had no knowledge of it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry what I did.
Don't die on me, Bob.
Don't tell me what to do.
Charles hears a helicopter and quickly builds up a massive signal fire, finally succeeding in attracting the rescue team. However, he realizes that Bob has succumbed to his injuries, and mournfully holds his body as the chopper lands near them. The rescue team carries Charles and Bob's body to the lodge, which is crowded with police and reporters.
Why is the rabbit unafraid?
Because he's smarter than the panther.
Charles embraces Mickey, but quietly hands her Bob's watch, which is shown to still be working. The couple share a quiet moment, understanding that Mickey's infidelity is now known.
We're all put to the test. But it never comes in the form or at the point we would prefer. Does it?
Mr. Morse, the other men, your friends.
My friends.
What happened to them, sir?
How did they die, sir?
They died, saving my life.
There are so many things to love about this movie, but the single greatest aspect of it is David Mamet's screenplay. The Pulitzer-winning playwright is noted for his brilliant dialogue in such acclaimed stage productions as Glengarry Glen Ross and Oleana, but my favorite work of his is actually his ventures into the action genre, particularly The Edge, The Unit, and Spartan. An action movie has the potential to be so much more than just dumb fun when a wise man is entrusted to craft the story. Some of my favorite films are one last hurrah old guy action movies. There's Sean Connery in The Rock, Tommy Lee Jones in The Hunted, Bernard Hill in The Lord of the Rings, and even the great Michael Caine in Harry Brown. But Anthony Hopkins' performance as Charles Morse in The Edge is by far my favorite. There's such measured wisdom infused into every line he speaks that we are immediately convinced that this elderly gentleman is the only one capable of saving his fellow survivors, even though both of them are younger and physically fitter than he is. Over the past few months, it's been pretty hard to review an Alec Baldwin movie without making a few really cheap, easy jokes. Which I will get to, don't worry. But the undeniable fact is that his performance as Bob Green largely overshadows even the great Sir Anthony Hopkins. Props where they're due, Alec Baldwin is enrapturing in The Edge. One of the most disappointing downward trends in modern films is a lack of aging heroes, as all of the major studios continually demand more youth-oriented movies. Not only does this inevitably halt the production of movies for adults, it also has a tendency to remove adults from movies altogether. There's a reason they say, don't be over 40 in a Star Wars movie, your character is going to die. When older characters are featured, they're usually doomed to background roles, mentorship to the younger protagonists, getting killed off early, or, more recently, being lectured by a body-positive, gender-uncertain, Afro-lesbian uni-student TikToker with that crappy half-shaved haircut about how they don't actually know what suffering is. There's also the hard fact that it's pretty dang rare to see a film character who is both a cucked husband and a billionaire who is anything other than evil. The cheating wife of a rich man is almost always portrayed as the victim, which is further evidence of both the blatant envy and lack of moral awareness in Hollywood. We're all but conditioned to immediately assume that a man with great wealth must have acquired it through immoral business practices and is therefore undeserving. We also assume that his trophy wife is exactly that, whereas Charles Morris is only ever shown to be sincere in his loving devotion to Mickey. I hate to be one of those guys who blames just about everything on Marxist infiltrations, but it is one of their basic tenets of that jealousy of wealth is an absolute necessity in overthrowing a capitalist nation, and I'm not seeing many people in BLM Antifa spouting the benefits of individual responsibility and hard work to gain financial success. Suffice it to say, I strongly doubt many self-made billionaires got to where they are today simply because they got a bad case of the gimmies. It may seem like an antiquated catchphrase from Sunday school that we should respect our elders, but we're now living in a world where the experience of age is being ignored, downplayed, or even outright mocked. An arrogant young generation is being told that the entire universe up until about 20 minutes ago hadn't been blessed with the enlightenment that they've somehow been endowed with, and they're actually believing and celebrating it. My dad never graduated high school. He dropped out early on, got a job, raised a family, and has been my hero ever since. I remember asking my mom on more than one occasion, how does Dad just know everything? It was because he came from a time when people got out in the world and learned with their hands and their minds would follow along. The practical experience that previous generations relied on for survival is something that's sorely missed today, and movies like The Edge always remind me of that. Even though Charles Morris has done a lot more work with his mind than with his hands, his age gives him the exact same shield of experience needed to survive when the rubber meets the road. Could this movie be made today? Well, first of all, Bart the Bear is dead, and I don't think the small circle of Kodiak Hollywood has yet found a worthy non-CGI replacement for him. Aside from that...
Hold on, flaring. Got it.
Okay, and let's go.
5-6. Alrighty.
Beautiful.
Presented without comment.
That famous day in history, the men of the 7th Cavalry went riding on.
Ah! He's a man killer. He's been following us the whole time. He's stalking us. Come on!
Sometimes nature is evil.
Put him on the endangered species list.
Let's go outside.
Alec Baldwin had trigger discipline in 1997.
Come on, Charles. Done is done.
Alec Baldwin lost his trigger discipline in 1997. Old white guys save everything.
Down with the patriarchy.
Only a strong female character should be able to outrun a 20-year-old Kodiak bear that can run down a freaking horse.
I want to talk to the manager.
Oh my gosh, she is the worst. Here's a more likable, gravity-defiant hot girl playing golf.
was good, but one of her legs was made of wood. Her hair was false and her teeth was too, and there wasn't much for me to do. Turkey in the straw, a turkey in the hay.
The fantasy of being a hero in a time of crisis is one of the most common in the human experience. But the truth is, we're never going to know how we're going to react when that moment comes. The professional heroes in the police and military get to where they are through some of the most brutal physical and mental conditioning the world has ever seen. And even then, there are times when they break under the pressure, sometimes even years after the danger has passed. I've seen a lot of trauma and suffering in my career, and I've had times where the memories kept me from sleep, sometimes for days at a time. What I would always tell new coworkers is that we can never know what our breaking point will be, no matter how tough we like to imagine that we are. After a particularly emotional incident, a tearful coworker asked me why there was so much pain and injustice in the world. I had no answer for that, but I told her, if you do this job, you will get used to it. The question you need to ask yourself is, do you want to be the kind of person who gets used to it? She eventually made the decision not to stay, and her life was much happier as a result. She'd done some great things, and you could even say that she'd done heroic things. But she understood that crossing some lines would take away her inherent empathy and leave her heart in a colder place. She needed to hold on to that humanity, even if it meant giving up on a promising career. The everyday heroes who manage to rise in the darkest times are most often utilizing some form of conditioning that they may have been subjecting themselves to for years without even realizing it. In the case of Charles Morris, his analytical mind and memory become the surprising tools needed to survive, and even to rally his fellow survivors to forge onward. This is best shown in a fantastic scene where Bob has lost all hope and has a complete emotional meltdown, until Charles calms him by simply asking if he is aware of a survival technique to create fire from ice.
All right. All right. Fire from ice. Let's have it.
Ice, if you take it into your hands, can be molded into a lens, which will concentrate sunlight into fire.
At the end of the day, a hero can come from absolutely anywhere, so long as there are still people who have both a moral need to stand up for a cause and a substantial amount to lose in doing so. Some of us will almost certainly face the hero's choice within our own lifetimes, and it definitely won't be at the point or in the form that we would prefer. Most of us in the Western world lead objectively privileged lives, so maybe we actually need to face difficult times to see if we can still muster a few heroes this late into the game. Maybe that test is what we need to determine if our nations can still be saved, or even if they deserve to be. Anyway, should Christ tarry, I'll see you in the next video. Jesus loves you. Vote Lane for King of Canada. Always remember,
Make a spear.
And let's make movies great again.
Maybe one day you can take my heart, or maybe we can't be together. Never.
Now, I once read an interesting book. It said that most people lost in the wilds, they die of shame. Yeah. See, they die of shame. What did I do wrong? How could I have gotten myself into this? And so they sit there and they die. What would you like to do? Huh? Should we lay down and die? Do you want to lie down and die, Bob? Did you know that Indian boys used to run up to the bear and slap him, count coup on him as a test of manhood? Do you believe it, Bob? Believe it? What one man can do, another can do.
You can't kill the bear, Charles. He's ahead of us all the time. It's like he's reading our minds.
You want to die out here, huh? Well, then die. I tell you what. not
Oh,
gonna die. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna die. No, I'm gonna kill the bear. Say it, I'm gonna kill the bear. Say it. I'm gonna kill the bear. Say it. Say I'm gonna kill the bear. Say it.
I'm gonna kill the bear.
Say it again.
I'm gonna kill the bear.
And again.
I'm gonna kill the bear!
Good. What one man can do, another can do.
What one man can do, another can do.
Say it again.
What one man can do, another can do.
Say it again.
What one man can do, another can do.
Yeah. You got right. Today, I'm gonna kill the mother.
That really hurt.